Welcome to another episode of Feed the Trolls. Nero is back. I think this is like his third time joining us. Obviously a sucker for punishment. Thanks for coming on the show. Today we are talking. Yeah, we're talking about Team Falcons and pretty much everything that was commented on in all the forums and things. And I try on these shows to like prep in my mind what it's going to look like, the visual of the funnel.
Shit. You're like playing out all the scenarios, okay?
You
like Sherlock
big.
Holmes in that Guy Ritchie movie, okay, I see.
I try and make it pretty, you know, so I start big with a bigger picture. I paint the picture for you. We talk about the past. We bring you into the funnel. I'm done. We have so many episodes of this team. There are so many conversations. I don't care anymore. I want to talk about everything straight away, so I'm jumping straight into this. You are Zonic. You get given the keys to the golden safe with all the money. You can have whatever team you want. You screw it up in the beginning. You're supposed to have Niko. That doesn't happen. You end up with the Ends core, which at the time was actually doing really well. Granted, we're moving from CSGO to CS2.
Sure.
They come in. They do a really good run at Cato. Everyone's excited. And then it just fails miserably. Then you talk about this dead team walking before the major. Everyone knows they're leaving. You do interviews where you literally say, this is not the roster I even wanted. And then the beginning of the year comes and you still don't have Niko. Now you have this heroic core, which seemingly you ran out to grab as fast as possible so you could qualify for tournaments. The heroic core is fine. It's doing okay. Then you do really well, but now you're moving because you're getting Niko and Manasi and you've got two of the best. They have this really good run. And then you get to the major and you fail miserably. So my question is, at what point do we kind of put a target on Zonic's back and say, hey, like, my guy, you've had a lot of time here, a lot of money to play with. You cannot get results. It's the end.
This is where you want to be devil's advocate, but also, like in any sport, even the greatest coach of all time still gets sacked. Like the best coaches.
Oh, everyone does.
And getting sacked doesn't mean you're a bad coach. It
you
just
basically
means
have to retire or you get sacked.
Project,
That's the only way it works.
Yeah, like how many people actually leave? Like Jurgen Klopp left.
It's true.
Like Guardiola probably gets to leave. But I think other than that, like, and this is something where it has to be on the management as much as the players because it's so many major cycles in a row. Like this isn't just, you know, like Niko and Muncie, we all know their history of like the last 7 majors together, right? But outside of that, if you're management, you're not going to get rid of Niko and Muncie after 1 major, whereas you've been with Zonic for 3 major cycles and all 3 have been terrible. And as much as, you know, you want to harp on about the format and excuses and this and that, like, yeah, that's fair enough. But then 3 in a row, like that's enough sample size that even the best coach of all time probably has to go now.
I'll give you the counterpoint here. Like, by the way, don't worry, I definitely have some flame for everyone in Falcons, including Zonic. But what I would say is this, right? I'll give you a really weird example. So people might have heard, just because it's like technically exited the 1 game. In Rainbow Six, Team Liquid had a weird scenario where a Brazilian Rainbow Six player made like an inappropriate joke on social media about like the nuclear bombing of Japan after losing to a Japanese team, right? And it meant that basically Team Liquid lost Honda as their one title sponsor. So this is like a massive impact that this move had. And afterwards, when we did a talk show, I did that thing where naively I sort of said, like, but if it was that bad, why didn't they fire the player? And someone made what is the very cynical but very practical and pragmatic response, which is, yeah, but they've already lost the sponsor anyway. If they get and fire the player, then you just don't have a good player. Like, you just lose twice. So I would say basically something similar, Nero, which is actually in isolation, you're absolutely right. Technically, this result alone, you shouldn't even need to look at the fact that you're fired. I'm sorry. You didn't even get to stage 3 of the major. Like, you didn't get to before. Forget even since you need to be in the playoffs at least. Like, I think at least like a semis was probably like minimum par for this event. And you have had all these millions and you've had some good players, etc. But here's the real problem is if you fire Zonic tomorrow and you bring in another coach, then the pragmatic argument goes, then why did we let Zonic sign all those players that he wanted for his project? So if you're signing a new coach, you're not actually doing it based on, is Zonic doing a good job the last year and a half? You're asking, would he be the best coach today that you can get to coach this group of players that you have just broke the bank to get? So if there's another one, by the way, I don't know who it would be. Maybe, by the way, because it's a rogue, maybe you should have got in before G2 and gotten Saw. Maybe that was the move. Maybe there was a move where it was like a logical person to bring in. But I'm just saying, if you bring someone someone else in, they are starting themselves from zero, but not totally from zero. They've got your players. And look, I will say Niko might be probably the best players any coach could start with. But even so, who knows? Maybe we'll ask Taz about this one day. Maybe it's not as easy as you think. So I do think, like, I agree with you. I do think in a performance industry, and especially because actually the Falcons project does mirror the football teams you're talking about, where the point is when you spent 300 million in a cycle, when you then don't get the results, you get fired because they want the next guy to come in. But if you do that, I will just say, think of some of the clubs that have done that. A lot of them still didn't find success with the next 2 or 3 managers. The same thing happens again, right? So essentially, I would just say this. To me, if you were going to fire Zonic, you did it at the end of last season. Then you got a new coach. Then you told that coach, right? Who do you want? Do you want Niko? Do you want Moses? What pieces do you want? Do you want to keep Tessa? I'd have done that approach, but I just think to do it in the middle of the year, I think that's crazy. What I would do is I would say you've got one. I would just literally go to Zonic. I don't know if you do this publicly. Depends what you want to do. PR. I would just go to Zonic and say, look, you got 1 season more now, mate. You've had the team you wanted. In fact, we're getting Kiyosuke as well. If you don't do it literally all next season, like I need a major or I need something that basically shows you are a long-term coach here. If you aren't, then you're fired. But I'm just saying, I maybe wouldn't do it like right now because I just feel like what was the point in signing every player and about to sign players? Surely these are his choices. Because that's the thing, Nero. Either they're his choices or they're not. If they're not, it's hard to judge him as much. If they are, we can judge him. But then why sign him if we're going to fire him tomorrow?
It's also tricky because you'd have to dismantle like the whole structure, right? Like if you're firing Zonic, you're getting rid of Lars as well. You're getting rid of Magus.
It almost goes without saying, yeah.
Yeah, so it is. It's like and also from like a sport perspective, it's much easier because they have like more advanced stuff. But I think like the way kind of Liverpool would think about it is you have an entire season, you're good at every single event, pretty much, apart from one, since they got the full team in, right? Like they only lose the vitality, and then they lose 2 best of 1s, 1 best of 3. Do you dismantle the entire project just because of that? Because I think if you were
feel like the more time that gets away from those results, the less it seems that crazy. On paper, it was the end of the world. I get what you mean, but I agree with you. If you just made all those finals with the roster, you start to look at the bigger picture. I feel like I'm just thinking how clubs think, you know.
Yeah, because I think if you're being sensible and you invested all this money, then you probably do want to just not and try and avoid the kind of results-based thinking that gets football clubs like Madrid sacking the best manager in the world every 2 seasons. Like you probably do want to avoid that. My issue with Zonic is that this isn't the first time, basically. That's the only reason I think it would be hard for him to stay on. Is this?
I think that was the point I was trying to make, though. I was like, it would be one thing if he had come into Falcons and they'd said, here's all this money, build the roster you want. And then you built the roster and you had good results and then you fail at the major. But the issue here is this is not the first time you've failed. Like this has been since this Falcons project has started. There's been so much talk, so much money, so many big moves, so many big players coming in. And then when it comes down to what is arguably the most important tournament of our sport, whether we like it or not, it is the major. That is where you fail, and you fail badly. 2 out of the 3 teams that that beat Falcons didn't even make it to stage 3. We can argue about the format as much as we want. The point is, like, this is a team that should have been in the playoffs. And if you look at the way they were playing, NER0, it didn't look like the Falcons team we had seen coming into this. If we actually just talk about what they looked in this, like in the server, it didn't look the same as what we had seen building up to the major.
Yeah, I mean, it was diabolical, I think, the whole way through. I think it's best of 1s can be tough, obviously, but I think also it is kind of that sports mentality of, you know, the Champions League is hard to win because it's pretty random. It's a completely knockout tournament. But at the end of the day, that's why it's so hard to win, and that's why it's so important. If the major was easy to win and it was, you know, best of 5s, double elimination the whole way, like the favourite probably wins more often, but would it be the same level of prestige? I think it's because it's so tough and because it's kind of so wonky that it almost has even more prestige than it would otherwise, because you know that if you win a major, like you don't only just have to be the best team in the world, you have to probably get a little bit lucky at times, but also be so mentally strong, because I think that day 1 where you go 0-2, like the effect of best of 1s is not just that they're 0-2, it's also that mentally the pressure you're under for those next 3 games, like because people would say, oh, just win your matches, just win your best of 3s, but I think and any human being would struggle being 0-2 as the second best team in the world in a shit stage, right? Like, and I'm not making excuses for them. I more just mean, like, this major is random, it is wonky, but that's why they're so special to so many people, and it's why they're so prestigious, almost because it's so difficult, even if you're really, really good at the game.
In terms of the mental pressure that you brought up there, I mean, I saw Yanko actually posted something on X about this where he said, I'll actually read it so that I don't misquote him, but he said the major might have an inferior format, but it's still the highest pressure environment in CS. And Falcons crumbled under that pressure. That's not the first time we've had a conversation about Falcons crumbling under the pressure, even when we changed the lineup. So what is going on? I mean, do you then look and go, what is the common denominator? The coach?
The problem is Falcons was just shit at everything last year. Like, essentially, aside from the kind of essentially the second Boros left the lineup, they just were never a relevant team. It's only actually the Saudi angle and the money that almost kept them in the news. Otherwise, they would have just been an also-ran team that no one gave a shit about. Like, the joke is no one cared as much about Furia being trash at tournaments. Like, that they were just allowed to do what they want. So, to me, I think maybe that's a bit overblown. I will say this part. That is rich as fuck for Niko to do that. I'll give you a quick example why, right? There's a style of coaching I've heard they use in League of Legends, which is instead of like just calling a player out, you just like describe him in as like vague a way as possible so he doesn't take it personally. So instead of saying like, I'll use a random example. Jankos, what the fuck are we doing on that gank? You just go, guys, we're having a real problem with the jungle, integrating it into our game. Maybe we need better communication and settle. And what you really mean is, Jankos, you fucked up the gank. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or the smite or whatever, right? The question there to Niko is, bro, what do you mean Falcons crumble under pressure? Like, isn't your boy Niko in Falcons? Isn't it his team? And hasn't he done this at like half the fucking majors in his career? And also, similarly, again, by the way, when these teams win tournaments, do we go, well done, Tessa? No, we all go, wow, the GOAT case for Niko, honestly. So fucking Nero's father over here, honestly. I think him playing like absolute shit and not being able to hit the side of a barn door also didn't really fucking help. I imagine if I was Zonic, when I'm building a gameplay, I didn't have, people lose 5v3s and stuff like. And by the way, on those ones, I don't even know how that's Zonic's fault. Like, do you imagine that's like a practice scenario and he tells them on 5v3s to peak super early and then, like, you know what I mean? Like, those are weird things, because that's one thing I find weird about the way that it's not that there's blame. There should be blame. This result is unacceptable. By the way, I agree with that part. It is literally unacceptable, whether the format's like this or not. But what I don't get is people are like simultaneously deciding like this person gets blamed, but then they don't get blame at the same time. So it's like, how are we dividing the blame up? Because, for example, logically, Zonic also did coach those teams that made all those finals, though, right? And looking really good and almost beat Vitality. So which is it? Does he just forget how to coach them in the game or something? So I don't know. It's why, if you notice, by the end, suddenly the Lars Ropel guy was roped in and it was all about him making Morrissey wake up too early in the morning or whatever. Like, this is actually why I actually think it is a mystery. No, I don't think there is one clear answer. I would imagine it's a bunch of factors. But if you ask, do those factors involve things like what Zonic did, how the players play under pressure? Yes, certainly does seem like that is a through thread. And I do think if you look at their careers, the underrated one, by the way, got the father of the other person on the show here, Morrissey. He's actually, if anything, he should be. I can see why he plays with Niko now. The joke would be, it's not just that Niko's dope. It's that Niko draws all the fucking. He's the flack, isn't he? He draws all the attention for Phil at the major. Because I'll just put this out there. If you remember last year at PGL Copenhagen, Morrissey was unbelievable. He's probably the best player at that major. Most of the majors he's played in, he's also been actually a bit off. He's actually had like underperformances. He just doesn't have as big games. There's a reason the two of them haven't had many successful results. I actually think everyone gets blamed. The question to me is just how much blame goes to each person, and what does that mean? Do you just get blamed as in like slap on the wrist, better do it next time, or are you fired, or is it this is your last 3 months, or we need to replace you, or in the case of, I mean, the reason why I guess they draw the Lars Ropel angle in is people, if they think he's doing a bad job, imagine like a better guy would somehow transform the team. By the way, you know some people who are in that side of the industry, Sam. It does drive me mad that people actually treat sports psychs like they are literally a mechanic, and it's like, right, fix the problem. It's like, the human mind. Like, how would I do? There's a certain guy called Freud, spent like a lot of years writing about that. It's sort of a bit mysterious, the human mind. Like, I can't just go in there and like, listen, love, it's your fucking brake fluid, I got to replace it. Like, that's what they think sports psychs do. So I do think, this is why I think if you add all the reasons together, everyone knows this is a clusterfuck. It's not one obvious person fucking up or one thing you can just fix. I think it's a bunch of factors.
I love that, though, that everyone turned around and said, I mean, that was that conversation, right? That Lars made, that was the leak. I actually thought it was, so Maui made the comments on the No Majors Club that Lars changed Manasi's sleep cycle and had him waking up earlier.
Okay.
I thought that was a Maui meme. Because Maui makes jokes like that all the time, where he says the most like absurd thing.
And if he's on his stream, he'd even tell you this. He puts a bit of hyperbole on his stream. Like, the joke is he would on his stream say Snacks was the reason you lost the game, but he doesn't think it's the only reason. So a bit of it's like spice and showmanship,
So that's what I thought. Apparently, right. I've now since been told, not by Maui, but by someone else, that it was a leak, but no one has the full story. But there was a conversation.
It'll be one of those things he'll have heard at like the bar at the event or something that, everyone maybe knows is the open secret or some shit like that, probably, right?
But here's my thing. I was like, okay, cool. But what happens if this is just something like this, for example, which is, okay, you guys, we're going to be playing at 10 a.m. So everyone needs to go to bed earlier because I need you fresh at 10 a.m., which is not the most uncommon thing. It's something that has to happen. It could have like simply been that. I don't imagine like Lars is now like in the room forcing m0NESY to get off his PC and go to bed at 10 p.m. so he's up at 7 for a walk or whatever.
You can tell these people have never met a pro player. You can tell pro players to do shit. It's like herding cats, mate. They don't just do what you say like a fucking drill sergeant. Like,
and that was another
This
thing.
Lars ROG guy is not as powerful as you guys imagine. And by the way, if m0NESY even told him, remember he's in Falcons now, shove it up your arse, Lars. The guy would have no agency to do anything, and the show continues on. So I am with you. m0NESY had to at least agree and or implement it himself.
But also,
and it's also like you said,
player. Do your job. It's Roy Keane. Do your job. It's your job.
Wake up.
I know.
The tournament days are from 10 a.m.
Do you know what's weird? We already had this happen literally like 2 years ago with fucking Stewie 2K when he famously said, like, why are the matches at 10 a.m.? The entire subreddit was like, you've paid like 30k a month, you dickhead, if I was earning that. But then if you hear m0NESY does it, let's be real. It's not about waking up at 10 a.m. It's because m0NESY played bad. You're all desperately searching for a reason why that could be. And apparently it can never just be he played bad. It has to be something like, someone like, you know, he was like fast as it, I just need those last 3 hours. And then Lars Robles fucking banging a saucepan around his head, like, get up, it's time to get up, 9 a.m, no reason why. Like, again, that to me, if you're out in the weeds for your reasons why they lost, like, I'd just go into the server and I don't imagine he was like sleep deprived. I know what you mean. I don't get that angle at all, mate. And I'll even say that's quite actually a mixed bag. Even though as gamers, we might think they all have the same lifestyle as us. There's actually quite a few pro players, by the way, who actually do have a sportsman lifestyle. Every day they go to the gym and they get up at the right time. I think even Niko did like keto for years or something. Like some of them actually are like pretty professional.
I do think it's like what you said, though. People have a misunderstanding of what a sports psychologist or a performance coach does. And also, I think that there is a deep misunderstanding. It's not like Lars sits in a room and says, okay, m0NESY, from here on out, you will do this. And m0NESY goes, okay. Do you know how many pro players, and I've heard this from both sides, from the performance coaches and the pro players. The pro players are like, oh, they just talk crap. I don't listen to them. They don't buy in. Or the performance coaches are like, listen, we sat down, we told them, we gave them the tools. They don't want to do it. Like, I know of pro players that have rolled their eyes at a performance coach and just been like, straight up, I'm not meditating. I'm not doing this. That's dumb. So like, to put all the blame on Lars, I actually just think it came about because maybe he was quite vocal publicly. You know, he used to do that whole, what was it? Trust the plan, trust the process. You publish that enough on social media, when the plan and the process fails, like it's inevitable that people are going to grab onto something and just run with it. And folks,
I also think people are still punishing him because if you remember, technically he's the person whose idea it was to do the dreaded, you stand in a circle and berate Boros. It was actually, you remember his thing was unpack the backpack or whatever he said it was.
Yes.
But the idea is you vent all your problems. Well, since people found out he's the person who designed that thing, which by the way, like every team does something like that, but okay, let's all just pretend it's already Falcons because that's all we saw on our screen. I think people just like they're punishing zonic. By the way, there's another thing. How many of you can just fucking actually admit that you're still just punishing him for that video about Boros? It's not really about fucking the championships. You're just mad at that still, and as soon as that happened, you were out on him as a coach. If you just admit it, fair enough. You don't like him, you can dislike him. That's all good.
The only thing is, like, when they win tournaments, like the Bucharest, I think he tweeted a second after they won, like, trust the process. Like,
Lars
Robles did.
Like, trying to take a little, like, because I think sports psychologists, and I think it's the same with, like, other teams as well, and I think this is what Strikers Tweet was
by the way, they make their own bet
right?
for them. They definitely all hype up the idea they're part of the reason you win, but then they are, I agree, they're fucking invisible when you lose.
The first to tweet when they win, trust the process, agreed. Blah, 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 blah. But if they lose, like, they let the players do the, like, oh, I'm sorry,
agreed.
guys, like, silence. And I think that's the only thing that some people were getting at.
No, that's
the Lars
fair.
thing,
Yeah, that's totally fair.
So Lars took a lot of blame. Zonic, a lot of the trolls online are saying, hey, like, he needs to go. Let's talk about the players, because you brought it up there, Thorin. I mean, where the hell was m0NESY? What the hell, Niko? Like, what happened to this team? NER0, like, where were they? I just don't understand. Niko, like, does he have a mental block? Is that what it is? Like, he sees the major and he just falls apart? Like, that's the only explanation I have at this point.
I think the m0NESY one, like, there's not a stat I could invent to excuse day one, really. There just isn't. And even the fucking, like, the media day, because we had to do, like, the interviews with them. I think I did, like, 12 interviews that day, which was an experience. But because they came in and Falcons were all, like, in a bad mood because, like, someone had fucked them around for, like, a different thing. Like, they'd been waiting for a while. I had, like, the worst interview of my life with m0NESY. And it's just like, because I've spoken to him a few times and it's always been fine. that day I couldn't get anything out of him. I was flagging as well. It's like the worst questions I've ever asked and the worst answers I've ever got, I think, like in one. So they didn't pass the vibe check day 0. And then day 1, I don't think I've ever seen him play worse either. And, I don't want to read into it too much, but also like I've been tagged in about 25 threads about him getting 0.70 rating. Like that number is ingrained into my brain now just because I put him number 2 last year. So
I don't know how that's relevant, man.
It's not even I. So yeah, I think
spoiler. I reckon if he'd have had 0.7, he wouldn't have been number 2 last year. I'm just speculating,
just a feeling,
there, guys. Just wildly,
Just a feeling that the arena rating that we made up might benefit Zyra this year a little bit, mightn't it? But yeah, I don't know. I think he's always, because you want to put the day 1 on him 100%. I think even though like Kixon and Majors had a worse game against Bay, I think day 1, like if your star off is getting 0.7, Euro 2, and I think a lot of people are trying to put pressure on Niko for the map 3 in the MOBR game, which
just because it's the last one, they're doing that thing where the last person to fuck up is the whole reason you fuck up.
Why are they in that position? Why are they in that position? They're in that position because m0NESY fucked up on day 1, really.
Yes.
And I did look into it actually because I was interested. I wanted to pile up like every map that Falcons, not even Falcons, that Niko and m0NESY have lost in the last major cycles, right? So every single map. So I did it all, and actually, it's not a good look for me because it's going to look like I'm defending my boy again. But in the 12 maps that they've lost that eliminated them from, I think it's all the way back to Antwerp with Alexi B. So it's Antwerp, Rio RMR, Paris, Shanghai, Copenhagen, and now Austin as well. Niko has a 0.88 rating and 0.6 KPR. And m0NESY is 108, so still not great, 0.69 KPR. So it's this thing of, we saw the Maui hot take of Niko being the biggest choker of all time. And I think m0NESY, what that ignores is why are they in those elimination games, and I think m0NESY's had bad moments to get them into them. But I think in the elimination games themselves, I think there is something about Niko at majors. There just has to be. Like, you don't have a player that good on a 0.88 rating over 6 consecutive elimination series.
Yeah.
Like, there's something going on there.
No, it's incredibly conspicuous, especially because this guy in any other tournament drop him in. That doesn't happen. So, no, by the way, you've also just described there why in some ways it's a nightmare combo. Even though on paper it's actually one of the best combos. 2 players who can play in a national team and are top players. The joke is m0NESY's problem is right up until the elimination point of a major. And then Niko goes, I'll take the baton from here and shit and fucking it up. And then he fucks up the rest, then you just lose. Because I do think here's the problem with that whole choker thing. It's like they really just mean he always has a bad last map. Because that's why I saw the one that did tilt me off. I literally went joker mode when I saw this, was when they were telling me him missing that deagle shot, which would have only got you to map 3 in that fucking final of a major, which if you don't know, that was one of the best major performances ever from a player. The idea that means he's like a choker. It's, what are we even doing here? But they just mean he's the last one to fuck up. And by the way, absolutely, if you look at the last map of a lot of these majors, including the famous Cloud9 one, those are the maps he's gone missing. The problem is, though, I do also think you have to add in that m0NESY's also got some sort of a weird performance issue too. That's why the Copenhagen one stands out to me. I really do think that was the one. Hence why that's the one where I wanted everyone fucking fired. Nexa, Hunter, Huxley, they can all get fired after that one. Because that was the one where, for real, the best player of the whole tournament didn't even make the final. I mean, he was close, but he didn't even make the final on that one. So I think that one is brutal. The craziest thing about this major, Sam, is, and this maybe says something about the state of the mental conditioning of the players, is the 2 players I actually think fucked up the least were the 2 that were on the chopping block. Like, Makers, Contestants combined actually had some all right games, or they had times when they weren't the one fucking, even Kixon didn't even look that good. The joke is all the people who were supposed to stay seem like the ones who fucking shit the bed mega hard.
It almost sounds like they're dealing with, struggling to deal with like pressure, have a mental block. Normally a sports psychologist or performance coach is the person that steps in to fix that.
Sure.
I mean, but the issue here is, that was just me being quite cheeky. Niko's actually worked with, like, I think 2 of the best, I say best, they've got the best results performance coaches in Counter-Strike, and still no major. So there's more going on there. But let's talk about the fact that there is these question marks around the players that are going to leave. Do you think that also plays into it? Because this is like a consistent thing with Falcons as well. It's just before a major, they announce the roster change and who's coming. And I don't know, I mean, they don't announce it. It's normally like a leak. Kiyosuke hasn't been announced, but the leak is out there. And I don't know if maybe that's also relevant to look at, is like, how the hell is this? These leaks are happening time and time again to you. Surely they play a role in how the team performs?
I mean, the joke is, I've always said this, people only tend to notice it when it works. Like, famously, I actually do think last season, based on what I know, the entire last season was just a dead team for G2. That's why they just fucked around and won those blasts and sort of played a bit carefree, fully enough, until when? The major, when they sort of shit the bed right at the end. Like, I do think that is a real factor, but what people ignore is, it's not hard or fast rule. Sometimes it also goes the other way. I do know examples where a player knows he's going to be caught and he plays even worse in the match, because maybe he feels things like people aren't going to play for me, or they're going to leave me like left out because I'm going to look stupid, or I don't want to be the one in my last game that plays badly. These are shit you don't even want to be thinking about in the match. You're supposed to be thinking about, what am I doing in the round and how am I helping this person? So I think the problem is it goes different ways for both people. Like, what's funny is, again, if we want to use a football example, if this was like a Real Madrid scenario where it's like, right, look, mate, we're not signing you again next year. This is your last year. Well, that's a club where people know that pressure and people seem to actually play up to that. Sometimes they play awesome in the last year. But I don't know that, like, put it this way, I would have said, if we could rewind the clock and I could say to Falcons management, again, think about what we just talked about with Niko Monesi. You don't really have the superstars that you want to be putting that weird pressure on the team behind. If anything, you want to be alleviating pressure on these guys. So I don't know that that's the team where I want to have it, like, fuck or walk. If you can't do it, we'll kick you out the team. It's like, some people are going to play worse in that scenario.
And I think it's the same thing for, like, someone like Testis and Magus, right? Because originally everyone thought Testis was the one to go. Like, that's the one that makes more sense if you're bringing in Kyosuke.
Sure.
So there is kind of an element where you can kind of play your way out of the rumors a little bit. But yeah, I think just going in, and it's kind of why I kind of, like, I understand why the major's at the end of the season, but I kind of dislike how many teams are preprered to go into the major with a dead team already. And
yes.
like, I get it, because you want to sort the buyouts early. Like, the best clubs do their transfer business early, whatever. Like, I get it. Like, half the teams at this major, like, I've already heard, are going to get rid of people. Like, even like the ones that it's playing well, it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, you've kind of already heard a few things about, like, oh, like, this guy's gone, that guy's gone. So it's kind of upsetting for the major, because I remember a lot of people used to criticize when it was at the start of the season for the same reason. Like, E-League Atlanta, I think, was like, everyone changed teams straight afterwards for the rest of the season.
Yes.
But it just seems like an inescapable problem in CS where everyone's just got a dead team all the time. So I don't think it can be an excuse for Falcons, because the teams they're losing to are probably dead teams as well. Like, they're already lining up replacements and everything. So I think it's just something that, if you're in a modern CS team and you're going into a major, like, there's a 50-50 chance that one of you's probably getting cut. And it's just a reality that pros are just going to have to get used to that now.
But with the Falcons thing, I mean, this is kind of what bugs me, is it never feels good enough. So every season since this team's iteration, it's been like, oh, we need a shiny new toy. So first it was, we need Niko. This isn't the lineup we wanted. Now we need Monesi. Now we need this. Now we need that. Now we need Kyosuke. Like, it's never bloody good enough. At what point do you as a team go, okay, this is the lineup. We have the best pieces. Let's go and make a run for it. I feel like they get a piece, and the moment the new piece arrives, within like a week, they're like, okay, we're actually getting another player as well. Like, that's what happened with Monesi and Kyosuke, right? And then it was Niko before that. If you're a team of players, if you think about it, like, and not only the players, I'm talking about management as well. As a group, you're constantly going, you're constantly giving everyone a scapegoat. You're going, oh, well, we're actually just going to get a new player because we don't believe this is the best lineup. How do you keep competing if you're constantly saying to everyone in the team, we still don't think this is the best. We still don't actually think it's that good enough. You kind of allow everyone to go, well, they don't really believe in this lineup, so let's just wait till next season. I mean, it's a very, like, basic way of looking at it, but it's kind of like, at what point do you just go, let us work with what we have and try and actually win something?
I think the point that they need to reach is to, like, sign an actual lurker, which is they just haven't done for a year and a half.
Fair.
Like, even Magus, like, he's not a real lurker at all. Like in Astralis, he's like the semi-lurk, right? And you have Zippix being the passive player. Like, I think this team has constantly had that issue. And signing Kyosuke is not going to fix that either, by the way. Like, if they're going to be breaking the bank, spending 2 million on a player, why not just spend 3 million on Bit and just solve your problem forever?
Sure.
But you need an actual anchor lurker, because I think the rifle
trio, isn't it rumored that basically Niko and Monesi agree with you and already tried to get Bit in a G2? Isn't that like what was implied last season?
Isn't he in, like, Na'Vi? Right? Isn't he in Na'Vi jail? My understanding is that, like,
who knows on that one?
Who knows? We don't know.
I mean, I'm sure, but there's other.
It depends how much money, though. Again, I agree with him. If you said 3 million, maybe they do say yes. I would imagine G2 wasn't offering 3 million per outlet.
Let's guess, though. I mean, Nero, we all know what's going to happen. Kyosuke is going to arrive, and then what? It'll be 2 tournaments through next season, and then they'll be like, okay, so actually now we're going for bid as well, because that is what Falcons does, right?
I've got a black pill for you guys, which is if you know players, as in on this particular level, not just know them, but you talk to them about roster moves, the actual limiting factor on roster moves is always the org and how much money they have. If you actually let pro players do what they used to do 10 years ago and make the teams, they would all do literally this Falcons model. I'm not even joking. In fact, what you just said is a feature, not a bug, Sam. The idea that by kicking someone, we never actually address what our issues are, what the bigger issues are. We just get someone who doesn't do that last mistake that we all remember fucking up the round, right? That is literally what most pro teams would do with pro. If you let the players, if you let the inmates run the asylum, they'd all do that. Like, the joke would be, all you'd ever get is like NIP with the revolving door. It's just a new fifth every 3 months, so that you never have to address which star player. Notice what we're talking about in this episode. Which star player played worse? Did the coach do the right job? Did we even veto correctly? Did we call the right strats? Like, we can ignore all that if we just go, but this guy had 0.7 rating, kick him and get the guy that has a 1.2. Like, that cycle will not only, the best part about it, by the way, is that when you fuck it up once, your brain goes, that was just the wrong player. And you get to do it an unlimited amount of times. And so, sadly, I do think if you let a lot of the top teams do this, it would actually be worse than this. The joke is, like, Mouse would be kicking someone after this. And then, put it this way, I mean, people actually know last year, Vitality wouldn't even have kept that roster for the last season. Like, they just had to, because that was the nature of the contracts. Like, they had to sort of play through issues within the team. So I actually think every team would do this, is the joke. But that's also, put it this way, this is why it sounds like they don't know, Sam, because when you know as a coach or a star or an IGL, you can't actually replace the bad player. You don't in the interview say he's the problem. You go, we're still working through things. I think it would be a mistake to make changes myself. I think what we need to do is get in a boot camp, look each other eye to eye and say, man to man, like, we've got to hold each other accountable. But that's just some shit you say, because it's like, I wish I could try a bit, but I can't, so I'm going to stick with this guy, Hunter, like, that's what you just do, mate. It's cope.
I think it's the Jimmy thing again, is they're permanently, I think, if the probably biggest flaw with Falcons so far is they're always waiting for the right player.
Yes.
So like for Niko, instead of just signing a good star rifler and just giving Snappy a chance with a real team, they just didn't have one and had Dupree and Madden not being star players for a year. And then they're waiting for Munacy this whole time. So they're like, they signed Dexter for the core, whatever, but they're still waiting for Munacy for a year and a half. And now I think they're probably, because Jimmy rejected them, signed a new deal or whatever, Bit's probably the same. And I think now they're like, well, we don't want to spend loads of money on like a Zway or like a young anchor player. We don't want to spend a buy on them because we're going to get Bit when his contract expires in a year.
You're also nailing, by the way,
players out of role.
You're also nailing something else, Harry. The other thing I do hold against Falcons is that it can only be a shitter, obvious fill player, or it has to be the best name in the world that's expensive as fuck. The fact there's no in between is why Snappy doesn't have a job right now, mate. I mean, he jokes he's in it, but he may as well not have a fucking job in tier 1. He doesn't get to go to tournaments because they didn't, as you're saying, go. My problem wasn't that they didn't get Niko. It's that their solution to not have a Niko and firing Boros was have old ass Dupree. Like, well, what am I supposed to do with that, mate? Like, there's a million young players. We all saw them come up last year, by the way, who could have done that role. Like, the joke is they were all in, like, the fucking Amigas of the world, etc. Like, they were all right out there to be taken. But yeah, Falcons only, it's not only that they need the next player. The next player has to have such a big name that it allows you to believe it fixes all the problems as well. Like, if this really, like the Kiyosuke one, the joke there is, he hasn't even played and we're still pretending like he's Donk and he's going to walk in the door and fix the team tomorrow. I still think that's the biggest question no one's even asking, which is, will the Kiyosuke lineup even be better? That's not actually a foregone conclusion to me. It could be, but who the fuck knows? Aren't we just playing back into like thinking of the best case scenario again? By the way, I thought this roster on paper should be able to win everything.
I think even like Snappy's NIP team now would absolutely destroy the Falcons team from last year because they've just got they've not been at many events, but you can see when they do, they've got a rifle trio that makes sense and a pretty decent AWPer. They batter Falcons from last year, so I think it's the same thing now where you've got Niko and Munacy. You don't need the best anchor in the world to win the major. No. You just need someone who's comfortable doing it. And I think Magus, I think honestly, I'd probably still keep him over Tessis. And just because the role fit would be so much better with Kiyosuke and Magus than Kiyosuke and Tessis. I think Kiyosuke, Tessis, Niko is an insane rifle trio to try and make work. And it might work just because Tessis has the personality to learn new things and everything, but you're making it harder for yourself by doing that. Like, I think you just need someone who's happy to be a little bit of a bitch for the other players, and that's fine. And that's team building 101. It's what a different coach would do, I think. And it makes me think that like Zonic understands this. Like Zonic built Astralis and everything. And I know there's a little bit of weirdness because he wanted Config, who would have had a role overlap with Dupree and whatever.
Sure.
But I think it's baffling to me that that they're not able to do that. And that's why I think it must be management at some level saying, oh, no, we don't want to spend money on that guy. We want to get Niko next year. We want to get Bit next year. It doesn't seem like something Zonic would do because, like, Zonic, he's smart. He's smarter than this. He knows all of the things we're saying. Sure.
Maybe Zonic isn't like us, role cells. Maybe he doesn't believe in it. Maybe Harry, every good player, like I'll go full HLTV form user. Maybe every good player, they're pro players. You shouldn't be able to play every role.
Yeah, you can play every role.
Play every role.
It's not hard. They just have to shoot,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can play every role, but you don't change the way you play that role. Like, you can have Mouse is a good anchor. Mouse was a decent anchor, but he doesn't play it like a normal anchor would.
Yes.
So you have to have a more passive rotator like Hunter, who's more supportive and could support Mouse. So then it has to fit together. It doesn't matter who you have where, as long as the profiles make sense. And I think Tessa's Kyosuke Niko will never ever make sense. I just cannot see it working.
Do you think it is a GMing situation here, Thorin? Like you were saying, it has to be the best, biggest name with the biggest star power or nothing, and we just wait. Do you think that is a GMing decision that's being made? Because I do agree with NER0 in that sense. I don't think Zonic is that guy. I do think Zonic knows a bit more about Counter-Strike than that. Like, do you think it is the management saying, okay, we want this sort of name brand team and we'll just wait it out?
Well, the reason why I actually think that if you want to really tie in a neat bow that whole initial discussion about Zonic, here's the best way to say it. If the Kyosuke signing doesn't work, as in for Kyosuke, that probably should mean tomorrow Zonic is fired once you've discovered that, because he must surely have a say that this is the player joining. And in this particular case, he's actually going against his own track record, which is his track record isn't I develop players, I'm the first stop for a player. He gets players when they're the finished product. I always used to say the worst thing actually, and as you say, he was going to take Config, he took Megas instead. Someone like MSL has to work through the hard years with those guys, and then Glaive and Zonic just go, oh, thanks, if you almost got the fucking lid off the jam jar, I'll just take that. Oh, that was all me. I must be the best ever. And you just go, mate, you would have never had this player if you'd got him when he was 17 and fresh-faced and never played a role, never played in a system. So I will say, the reason the Kyosuke one to me is a massive gamble is, the difference is, this is why people like Kassad won't give him any credit for that Niko Modesty. Look, no matter what you say, it is excellent GM to sign Niko Modesty if you can. Like, those are almost the best players you can. But obviously, part of the reason why it's excellent is they basically do the rest for you. Like, once they get in the server, they just go off and they really do Niko go kill. That's real. But the problem is, if the other pieces is where you're going to judge him, and if he's brought up a piece that hasn't ever played at tier 1 for Megabox, remember, it'll be the biggest signing ever, might even literally be the biggest signing ever, full stop, but of a rookie.
Second
easily.
to Honesty.
Yeah, and then as a result, if you actually then fuck up with that player and you already aren't someone who's shown the ability to like transform play, then at that point in time, yeah, maybe you do bring someone else in. Because I will say it does play into Zonic's history to just give him the biggest names. That's what's given him a success so far.
But if you
remember, even in Vitality, the win came from looking at Ents and going, that Spinks guy is basically that far from being like a top 5 player. Why doesn't he just come to Vitality? Magically, then they win after that. Like, it's not really rocket science, is it?
In a weird way, I think, Zonic is probably the least role set, because you look at all, 4 times. So even Astralis, the first transfer move he has control over, he puts Kierby in the same team as Dupree.
Yeah.
And then he tries to get Config in the same team as Dupree.
Yeah.
And then in Vitality, he's like, oh, it's fine with Masuta, and just plays for a few months until a good lurker like Spinks is available. And then in Falcons, he's like, fine, it's fine with Niko and Kyosuke. So he is just stacking aggressive players. I think maybe
seems like it, yeah.
As I've thought about it, I think maybe maybe this is the issue. he does think you just get 2 aggressive star riflers and everything will be fine.
Which, by the way, does sound like some. I'll give a reference here again, Sam. It's a football one, but it's all right. Don't worry, Nicky will get it. It'll help. This is just some Postecoglou. Like, I just score goals. It's like, yeah, but it's actually really hard. If you only score goals and you don't defend, you have to end up scoring 5 goals to win 5-4, which is basically, spoiler, impossible. Like, that just doesn't work. That's that. Even when people say La Liga play aggressive, they still have some defenders, mate. They have some pretty good defenders in La Liga,
Yeah. But also, I think in a small pivot, but the stuff Steele's been saying constantly about this Falcons team as well, I think, is basically that they look rubbish and they have no structure and blah blah blah. They're failing the basics all the time. And I think at some point you have to kind of accept that that's something people said about G2 for 2.5 years, right?
It is.
And Kicksands teams didn't look like that before.
No.
I know Apex had a bit of a weird structure. A lot of people were a bit weird about that Apex team because they played solo all the time and whatever. But Heroic didn't look like a team like that. They looked like a functional team that was sensible and didn't make stupid mistakes. So if they're suddenly all making mistakes now in the Niko Modesty configuration, I think that's because you hear that and you want to pin it on Kicksan and Zonic. But I think at some point you've got to say Niko and Modesty are kind of enabling this kind of full freedom playstyle, at least to an extent. Like, that has to be on them. If the same criticism is being made about their in-game leaders for 3 years, at some point that isn't the in-game leader's fault, because it's the same. It's the same criticism every time.
I even think of that comment from Huxley, you know, where Huxley said, like, Niko will be the best IGL the day he would... Right, that's not a great look for our team if we're having all-way disconnects between the star player and the IGL, and the whole time the IGL secretly has to go, he thinks he's better than me at my job. Like, that's not... By the way, Huxley, I know you didn't do it on purpose, but that is some, like, grade A Grimmel fucking worm-tongue behaviour there, mate. Like, you're just putting that in there, like, Niko and Kicksands here, like, you don't... Niko's probably better than you at that job that you're doing. Like, brilliant, thanks. There's all the team trust gone. Brilliant.
But that's the long-term thing again. Is that Kiyosuke is going to be Niko's replacement in a year when Niko becomes an in-game leader. Like, that's just clearly the plan.
It does look like that's possible, by the way.
Surely, though, in those situations, it is the coach's job to say, hey, Niko, shut the fuck up. Like, Kicksands making the calls here. Like, you sit down and bring that ego in check. And if there was a coach that could do that, it would be Zonic, because we've seen him deal with big egos many times before. So it kind of leads me back to the first question, which is, what the hell is going on with this Falcons lineup? Why can they not deliver when the time comes? Is it the players, Nero? Do you think that the majority of the blame needs to fall on them?
I mean, I think I want to do the kind of what a baseball statistician would say, and that is that you cannot write off an entire team of players we know are really good because of one event. And the issue with it, the complication with it, is that it's the third major in a row for Sonic and is however many majors in a row for Niko and m0NESY. But I still think ultimately, like, a template of Kicksands, Niko, m0NESY, I think, yes, they're going to have to play a loose and fuck up the basics all the time, but I think you get the pros as well. Like, in the other tournaments, there's pros of playing that style and giving them that. You don't sign Niko and m0NESY and then have Kicksands micromanage them. It's just not a thing that's going to happen. So I think the core of Kicksands, m0NESY, Niko, and even if you keep Zonic as a coach, I think if with Falcons' budget for the other two players, you will eventually win a major if you just stick the landing and trust the process. So I think in terms of blame, I would blame for Austin primarily m0NESY. I think that day one completely fucks their complete major up. And I think that put understandable pressure on Niko, who then fucks up the other game. But I would still put it at m0NESY's door 100%. But in terms of the team overall, I think that they can win the next major easily. I think if you just stick it out and make a sensible signing and not because Tessa's played bad, but if you just replace Tessa's with like a normal anchor, Kiyosuke, normal anchor, Niko, Kicksands, and m0NESY, they'll probably win a major in the next 3 cycles. I still think that, despite seeing them choke this many in a row. I think you'll accidentally luck into it.
So another player at Falcons. That's the solution.
I've said this for years.
By the way, I don't even think it needs to be another player. I think you could run this lineup back.
Yeah.
This lineup's more than good enough.
Mm-hmm. I mean, presuming Vitality don't have a 4-year era, which I think is, you know, like pretty likely just on kind of just the last few years of CS. Like, I think if the next major and they've still won every tournament, then sure, Falcons.
Oh, I tell you what,
money,
also,
in real
here's
life,
what no one's thinking about as well. If somehow Vitality doesn't win this major, it will also make the narrative way worse for Falcons. Like, if they fuck up and get eliminated by like the Mongols in the fucking quarterfinals, then it will be the end of the world that Falcons didn't win. Because the one excuse you had for the last tournaments, because you played really great CS, was no one can beat Vitality right now. So if your window is that now they're still the best team, but you didn't win this major, that will look even worse on Zonic for sure.
Do you know what kind of bugs me? And it's like a little niggle that I've had for a while, and I will now voice it, which is the thing about Falcons that is annoying me is that I feel like really good players get like chewed up and spit out there, and we're losing good talent because of how they're choosing to run this team. Because if you think about Snappy, like, look what happened to Snappy. I thought Madden was really good. Look what happened to Madden. Tessus is going to get chewed up and spat out. Like, that is going to happen, no doubt.
Eventually. Whether it's this cycle or not, eventually.
I rate it is. I think they'll bring in Kiyosuke, and I think they'll spit out Tessus. And then the problem is the buyouts. I mean, I don't quite understand, but my very basic brain goes, the buyouts are high. These guys are not sitting on the benches. Like, it's difficult to shop them out. No one wants to touch. And then these really good, and they are good players. Dexter, perfect example as well. Really good player. They're just kind of like floating off into the ether. And my inner Cassad is like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, this is not good. We need to stop this. But I don't know if maybe it's because I spend too much time around Cassad that I'm thinking like this.
You know, The only thing I'd say is I think they can wipe their tears with like the cash,
exactly.
right?
Because for whatever.
You don't fucking
But they
join
don't play
Falcons.
again.
Like,
No,
Tessa's,
they got. Yeah, no, they went in knowing
yeah.
what it was. Come on, they knew.
If Tessa's, Dexter, and Kickstone went into this contract without saying my buyout needs to be low because you're going to bench me in a year, then that's their fault because it's obvious to everyone, including them. And like, I think ultimately we just need to see it as, you know, this is, you want to live off the rest of your life with this money or whatever. And someone like Dexter is like, I'll play for 6 months and then be benched on a salary that's 4 times what I get somewhere else.
Yes.
And I'm sure they'll come out and eventually say, like, oh, actually the salaries are competitive. But no. Like, you could see on that Ents trio last year, they play better if they're paid less, 100%. I think even Sampaius has kind of alluded to it. Like when I interviewed him this major, I think he literally said like, oh, like I've kind of struggled with some like personal things and like getting over like motivation and stuff. It's like, yeah, why weren't you motivated last year? Was it because they paid you loads of money regardless of how badly you played? So I think this is the thing with Falcons is I refuse to feel sorry for anyone that signs a Falcons contract. Like if you fuck up your career by going to Falcons, that's your fault. You know they're going to replace you unless you're Niko or Monesi.
By the way, this is even where like the football analogy is perfect. Do you know how many people who were stars in other teams have joined? Famously, Real Madrid is the best example ever, and then ended up on the bench. They didn't walk in going, what the hell's that possible? They knew when you go to that team, you basically have to play the best of your life or you'll get put on the side. So I'm sorry, not just Tessa, it's definitely Dexter, because by the way, he already knew the rumours about Monesi, right? He goes into that not only knowing it's going to happen, but part of him's even probably thinking, I do have a small window though, where if our player somehow lights out CS, maybe it doesn't happen. Like that's even why I say maybe the pressure could have gone the other way for this. Maybe it would have worked, by the way. Maybe this could have made Tessa have like the craziest performance of his entire life. A la Dexter actually at the last end of Falcons, and then suddenly they want to keep him. It's unlikely, but you also do go in knowing that. And unfortunately, pro players always have to have the mentality of like, I can do it if I can be the best if I just apply myself. That's kind of what being a pro player is. No, my biggest problem with this whole thing is like, I do think in some ways it's unfair, but I'll tell you what the bigger issue is. And this is actually where Falcons hasn't done this because they weren't a good enough team to be in position to do it. What I'm actually scared about is what you said towards the end there, Sam, which is the idea people not just get chewed up, but they just get put on the shelf and they have to just sit there gathering dust. Because I can tell you, I've always said this. I'll give you the example from Football NER0. I always say to people when when everyone says that they shouldn't to Manchester City have signed Jack Grealish, right? Because he was £100 million and they never play him. I always go, no, that's genius because they won everything without him. But that ensures that like another top 6 team doesn't have Jack Grealish actually like tearing up the midfield and scoring in a fucked up way. If you actually have the infinite money glitch, the other thing you can also do is just hoard all the players. You can just have Tessas as your sub player till the end of the contract. And by the way, again, let's just throw this in there. This is where unfortunately business fucks up the game. In a sane world, you should be like the player who, what you're supposed to do when you're at one of these clubs, which is go, can I have a free loan somewhere else to keep playing, right? There isn't one of those like that in CS. So in CS, the real problem here becomes, this is why I don't feel sorry, Sam, is if I put Tessis on the bench and go, look, mate, you're on the bench for the whole next season, but if you stay, you do get the 35k a month. Does he really go to his lawyer and go, is there a way out of this car? Or does he go, oh, anyway, I think I'll start playing golf or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There's some players might just go, maybe I'll take the 3 months on the bench for essentially the craziest salary I'll ever experience in my career. Because you always have to ask where they're going to go elsewhere. And the problem is, if you're Tessis, as much as people want to say you're going to get an awesome gig, you're probably not going to G2, but you're probably sadly going to an Ents ROG. You know, one of these sorts of teams or a NIP or something, it's probably going to be more that sort of level, unfortunately.
I only actually feel like it's sad because I like all the players that I mentioned. I feel like if there was a player on that lineup that I didn't enjoy, I'd feel the same as both of you and just be like, oh yeah, well, who cares? But those guys, I'm like, I like watching.
We could also, surely you could also, if you really like them, surely you want me to get the fuck out of this Falcons mess.
I do,
Zonic
actually.
Trapping him there with his bag, trapping him in his bag, not letting him out, you know.
I thought Falcons was going to the finals for this one. I legitimately believed, like from what and that was the thing, from what we saw in all the tournaments leading up to this, I felt like they were peaking at the right time. I thought the team looked really good. I think that they were playing really well. They looked super impressive. And I mean, NER0, it just, like I said this earlier, and I'll say it again, it was like a whole different team. And I know we spoke about Monesi, but he's just one player. I felt like all the other pieces didn't kind of know what was happening either when they arrived.
I think there's a huge knock-on effect to basically everything. Because I think that first half is like they lost like, what, 8 pistols in a row as well or something. Like,
yeah, they lost almost all of them, yeah.
So it's like all the RNG things that could have gone wrong basically did. Like Kicks and Omegas had like 3 kills combined in the first half against Bait. And you're just like, well, this was happening again. Like Monesi's on like 4 kills and it's And I think it is, because we've seen them play so well, I think the only conclusion is that it's a mental thing. And it's not that they fucked up the preparation or they fucked up this or that. I think it's just in the server, you're thinking to yourself, oh, it's the best of ones, it's the best of ones. I think it's just in their heads completely. And I think it's all of the players, probably. I think, Niko had his moments on day one, but like for an event, he's like pretty average. I think like pretty much all of them were. So I think it is ultimately just when one person fucks up something early on, then another person, like if it kind of spreads, it's infectious, right? Of that kind of mental pressure. And I think because they didn't really have anyone who was able to stop it, and I think you would probably hope that zonic is the one that's able to stop it. And like, okay, we're losing 4-1, but it's bait, and you're a better team than bait. Just be better. And I think that's maybe what was lacking, is that I'm sure he said that, but they didn't. They didn't wake up. There was no one who had the emotional leadership in the moment to snap the players out of it. And it doesn't even have to be emotional leadership. It could be like the Steven Gerrard leadership, where you just get 30 kills and win the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there's multiple ways to do it. And I think the problem is, like we've been saying kind of all episode, is that it's everything. Like nothing happened. Niko didn't take over the game. m0NESY didn't take over the game. Kickstand didn't snap his players out of it. zonic didn't snap out his players out of it. Lars ROG didn't snap his players out of it. Like it's everything at once. And that's how you end up losing to terrible teams.
By the way, I also do think that what people are missing when I get mad at like the BO1s at the major is actually tied into what NER0's saying there. It's not the idea that like BO1 is impossible for the better team to win. Obviously, the better team does win it like probably like 80% of the time or something. It's probably not actually that far mathematically off overall the like best of 3 one, beyond like intangibles like best of 3s in the playoffs and all that jazz. But the bigger issue is, I think just like at RMRs, because you saw this behavior change in RMRs, it used to be at majors that if you were the big team, you walked through qualification, no one could touch you. The joke is you probably didn't even prep for them all. You just knew you'd win because they're way worse than you. And the joke is you could really do that old Lurpus thing of like, just play a fucking poggy and shoot them. We're way better players. That stopped about 3 or 4 years ago. And what you found was at both RMRs and now especially in these Swiss systems and the BO1s, the actual pressure is on the favourite, not the underdog. What's crazy is the favourite the whole time is thinking like NER0 there, don't fuck up, don't fuck up, don't fuck up. This is the BO1, don't fuck up, don't, if we get to the BO3s, don't fuck up, don't fuck up. That, I'm sorry, that's not what you think in a normal match. Like in a normal BO3 and another tournament, they're never thinking that. Even if you lose map 1, it's like, right, we'll focus on map 2. So I do think, right, it doesn't help everyone's case that this is only a Falcons problem when Vitality immediately loses to a no-name team who shouldn't have qualified by like the biggest margin anyone's ever beaten them by with this lineup, get completely shit on. Even they can't buy a pistol round. By the way, there's immediately a small thing I'd be worried about. 5 teams with Niko and fucking Zemo work out with pistol rounds. I have some of the best pistol round players ever. What are we doing? So the fact that you then lose also makes me think that a lot of these big dogs are just going into those games like shit scared, basically. Even though the joke is on paper, you think you can't lose. There should be no reason to. So that doesn't help. That doesn't help. I do feel there's a lot of... The joke is, I think at the majors, we've got the weirdest thing ever, because it's like the pressure only flips in the playoffs, in my opinion. If you're the underdog, it's only if you make the playoffs that you get all the pressure back on you. Before that, no one will ever flame you if your legacy and you lose to Vitality. So you actually do play completely free.
I was actually thinking that watching it. It's just quickly, it's like, as soon as Legacy won the Force Buy and it was like 1-1, I'm like, I need to know the live betting odds on this, because I think like if you're the favourite and you get fucked on your CT side and you're forcing 3 rounds in a row like Vitality were, because it's Inferno, you save 2 guns, force again, 4-1 down. Like I think you lose that game so like literally 90% of the time, probably, whoever you're playing, because it's just like it's mental. And I think it comes back to the MR12 issue of, we kind of have hidden it with all these formats with the best of 5s and the best of 3s every game. But ultimately, one map of Counter-Strike is very, very random, and it can go the wrong way. And because pros are aware it's random, then it's the mental pressure as well. And I think it's the combination of those things that is always going to kind of create madness in the major. And I think that's what people love them for. But it's not what I would want a world championship to be.
Isn't this the reason why everyone's bombed about the coin challenge? Because the real problem with the coin challenge is just that you can't anymore gamble and put the real 3-0 team in the 3-1 section. Because essentially, we all know this by how the old coin system worked. It was the most risky pick ever to put a real should 100% 3-0 team as 3-0. You essentially just inting your pick there because everyone knows the BO1's always where they're going to get got. Somehow those, especially because by the way, it's also 2 BO1s on one day. Everyone forgets that part too. It's like you can talk about coaches. There's a part I also will throw out there, Sam. You do know there's not a single tournament in professional Counter-Strike that uses this type of format that the coach would play into. As in, the coach can't call in the game, right? He only has a few timeouts, so he's doing all of his work before the game. How am I supposed to prepare for the second opponent when I don't know who they are and I play them like an hour later?
If you play them an hour later.
I have no, you always play, on the first day you always play the 2 BO1s, remember?
But wasn't there, I think it was yesterday, again, I was sleeping, where I think Kassad pointed out there was like a team that had to play the first game and then they were playing the last game. So there's that other thing as well.
Oh, he meant the two Swiss systems. No, he meant like at the end of Swiss 1. That was because there was no days between the Swiss systems sometimes. Well, the first one, I think.
That day one is brutal. Like whether you,
it is,
from a time point of view, you've got tired players. We all know when you're at these events.
Absolutely,
and I know this sounds, if you're watching and you're a fan, you think it sounds ridiculous, but just like getting good food is sometimes impossible. Like, and that sounds ridiculous, but that is actually a thing that matters sometimes if you're having to play these games. And
especially, by the way, if you're from another part of the world, maybe you don't eat like the diet in this particular country, or the hotel food's not your style. Yeah, absolutely. And also, like, we're not making this about everyone else. I actually do think, I think it was Steele or someone said this on Twitter, they were right. Bro, like, Donk was playing a fucking pog in Europe about like 4 days ago or something. Like, I don't know if people know this. If you've travelled enough, it's supposed it takes roughly a day to go 1 hour wrong on your schedule. Like, that doesn't even make sense sleep-wise when they're getting there, like, at that point in time. Like, you're even risking that. Like, the fact you're going to have to sort of play yourself into the event half jet-lagged. Like, these are all factors that are real. By the way, I'll even throw that out there as well. This event's in America. Like, there's plenty of most of the events in Europe. These are all factors. They might not be the factor, but these are all you need is that to take a little 5% off your performance.
The Falcons one of the teams that stayed, because I know FaZe did. But
Falcons
I can't remember
stayed.
I think they did,
Dallas.
yes.
Because I think it's like you can't win, basically. If you're a European team that played Dallas, you stay and you've got the perfect world Shanghai thing where you're just together for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And someone's going to fall out with someone, right?
Yeah.
Or you go home and you're double jet lagged. And I just think you just completely screwed either way, just because of the way kind of tournaments lined up, especially if you're a stage 3 team. Like, I think Vitality must be feeling that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think my ultimate point with the major is I think if you design it for entertainment, it's perfect. But it's kind of also the same. Like, I get the same feeling after watching like Legacy beat Vitality as I did like the Formula 1 race in 2021 when they fucked it up at the end and they left.
Oh, okay.
And they had that epic final lap showdown. You're like cheering, like, oh my god, this is so sick. And then it finishes and you're like, oh, it's just not a real sport, is it? It's just not a proper sport at all. And I think the best of ones kind of give me the same feeling where it's that kind of like short-term dopamine hit of like, oh, underdog, I love an underdog. And then you get to the playoffs and everyone's like, oh, I'm just not going to watch that game. And because it's going to happen again. Like, the viewership is going to be lower in the playoffs than like Simple playing some shitters in the 2-2 game last stage. Like, that is absolutely going to happen. And it is this format. And I think it's designed for the short term. Oh, it's so fun to see the underdog stories.
Oh, the drama. The drama's mega.
But what do we remember from majors? We remember Cloud9 Boston. We remember Astralis at Atlanta. Like, we remember these kind of maybe not top dogs. Like, those are the underdog stories that actually stay with you for longer.
For sure.
Not that Astralis were complete underdogs, but Cloud9, I mean, I'd much rather that underdog story of like the 5th or 6th best team in the world, like fighting above the odds and in playoffs against the best teams. Like, now, like, if Mongols can win this major and they can play none of like Mao's Vitality Falcons, like, that's possible with this format. And I think that's my main issue with it, is not that it's not entertaining, but that when you look back on it, the bits that were really fun in the moment are not the bits you really remember. Like I remember, I loved watching Fnatic play Vert against GT. That was like one of the most fun hours of Counter-Strike I've watched. Do I remember anything that happened? No. But I remember the major finals. And I think ultimately that's what we should be designing the major for, is memorable playoffs, not memorable group stages. And it's why I always criticize the RMR. Everyone loved the RMR. It's so entertaining, blah, 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 blah. But it was more entertaining than the major for that exact reason, if the stickers were on the line. So I think you kind of have to add pressure to the underdog somehow by having stages of stickers throughout the stage. Like, if you make stage 2, you get more money somehow.
That's a cool idea.
They're just so happy to be there. They play with zero pressure, and you're playing against Vitality with all the pressure on you in the world. And this is obviously going to happen. It's the combination of the pressure, the best of ones, the MR12, everything. And the end result is just a bad World Championship format, ultimately, that isn't going to crown the best team of the season as consistently as we want it to be.
So in conclusion, don't fix Falcons, fix the major.
I was about to say, so that's it.
It's only 10%.
We're giving Falcons a pass. We've basically gone, it's okay. It was a shit major. You had to travel far. It was really tough on you. You have so much pressure. Everyone will take a little bit of blame in the team, and we'll forgive you and see you next year with Kiyosuke, or next season with Kiyosuke.
No.
By the way, as far as I can tell, if you look in history, I'm going off the top of my head here, but I've got a pretty good memory. I think almost every single major ever has one of the actual favourites not even make the playoffs. Feels, unless we're talking about really old school CSGO or something, where there was like 8 good teams in the game. If you go back to like the sort of like couple of years before COVID and then the years afterwards, it's always like, people forget this. the fucking vitality that Zonic had with Ziwu and Spinks, they were just fucking around at that Rio Major, getting grouped, etc. Well, there's a whole bunch of times you've had, obviously, like Na'Vi teams were simple, not make it out of the groups. Like we've had some outrageous ones, which, by the way, if you notice, the trend here is, but I agree with Nero, it's not a bad thing. I don't like the format aspect. I do like the pressure part, though. I do think the major should have more pressure. If it was just aggregated out, then it would actually suck, wouldn't it? Because now what we would be saying is, well, who cares what the major? They were in the finals of all the other tournaments. Like, no, we know that in some level this does mean more, and that actually it's not that Yanko one of like it doesn't matter to win all the tournaments if you don't win the major. But I tell you what, it will like devalue some of that.
Yeah, and I think my main flaw with best of ones is when a big team loses, I want to 100% know it was the pressure getting to them and it was the players fucking up. I don't want there to be any shred of doubt that you can give them excuses like the format or the jet lag or some stupid shit like that. I just want to know 100% they lost 3 best of 3s because they're a bad team and they deserve to go out in stage 2. And I think I want to do that with Falcons because watching them on the server, they looked terrible. But how often do teams look terrible on map 1 and then win 2-1? They even lose their own pick sometimes and then just wake up into it. So I think it's not making excuses for Falcons. It's more just we don't know, really. Because
I mean, I'll add to your argument. In this winning streak of 30 matches, there absolutely were series where Vitality got clapped on map 1. That's real. And then won the series anyway. Like, that doesn't make the excuse for Falcons, but it does show that it's... Because that's one thing that people kept saying as an argument. I don't really understand how it's an argument. They went, yeah, but if they played like that, they'd have lost the best of 3. Then what's the problem with having the best of 3? Haven't you just made an argument for the best of 3 there? Like, what's weird is you've missed your whole argument, guys. You're supposed to actually argue. It doesn't matter whether they would win the best of 3. Like, it's the pressure. We're making it exciting and underdogs have a chance. That's what you got to figure out your arguments, guys. You've got to know what the principle you're arguing from is. Because if you actually think that Legacy would have beaten them in a BO3, then by the way, it's even to Legacy's advantage we make it a BO3. Then they really will be legit and everyone will have to give them their props and their due and it will be a legit run.
100% that, actually. And we can do best of 3s now, and we should. The format for the major should change. Falcons will change. We just don't know how yet. And we'll probably be having this very conversation for the next major when Falcons bombs out again, and then we can revisit it. But for now,
I'll be like, but if you just give Zonic like fucking Malps, then he'll finally next season you can judge him just on the next season.
Just another $1 million.
Yeah, for the next 2 years, it'll be like, just give them more money, buy them more players. But you can let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll have another episode soon.